Role-Playing a Warlock Patron Part 7, the Genie. These are super interesting patrons for two reasons. One, your player gets to really hone in specifically on exactly the patron they want, and it's more narrowed down than a lot of other patrons. Even something like the Fiend, yes, there's stat blocks, but there's a lot of stat blocks, whereas here you're really only working with 4. There's the Jinn, the air elementals, the Dao, the earth elementals, the Merid, the water elementals, and the Ifrit, the fire elementals. And that's it. And while there's lots of roleplay opportunities, it's an interesting counter to the other patrons where there's not a lot of variety in the stat blocks that could possibly be behind these mystical powers. Not only that, but the player is choosing which one of these 4 they want to use. Now, I think right off the bat, there's 2 big elephants in the room we need to talk about. One, this is clearly working against a very sort of through the Western lens version of what a genie is, and we should approach this with a little bit of more cultural sensitivity and research before we go too deeply into it. Based on the special 9th level spell, Wish, that they gain access to through this subclass, we're obviously working with the Rub a Lamp, gain 3 wishes kind of fantasy archetype here. However, I would encourage you to do your own research, pull from ancient Near Eastern myth, and try and flesh out these things in a little bit more of an IRL way if your table is comfortable with that and if you're interested in that. Because it could be really cool, and you can expand on the lore that's a little bit shallow in terms of the baseline D&D lore that you're getting around these 4 elemental patrons. Second elephant in the room, most of these genie all reference slavery somewhere in their lore from the Monster Manual. I think this is another great opportunity to not have just blatantly evil patrons for a warlock, and instead approach this as if they were a ruler. Approach it as a monarch or some other version of powerful, influential person that happens to be elemental based and magical based. We really don't need slavery to factor into these stories, and it can be removed and still create interesting characters. The Dao are harvesting gems from the elemental plane of Earth. That's cool because gems are used for spell components. They could have some sort of mastery over the trade of powerful spell components, and it could be a useful relationship between the Warlock and the Cleric, or whoever's doing the resurrecting of the party, in order to facilitate diamond trade. All of the elemental planes are incredibly interesting places to go and visit, so make sure that you're creating characters that your party actually wants to go and visit. Being invited to an elemental air palace for the Warlock's Jinn patron would be a super cool way to have sort of like a beach episode that could lead to some political intrigue. For Merid, lean on their whimsical storytellers piece of their lore, and accentuate the fact that, hey, they could be pirate kings, and pirates for good, maybe. Also, the Genie's Vessel ability is super powerful and a great way for the player to inject a lot of cool world building and roleplay into their downtime, so make sure and work with them on that to create cool story moments throughout the campaign.